On a radiant afternoon, the cream-colored stones of Buckingham Palace glow under a sun that bathes London in golden warmth. The Union Jack flutters atop its flagpole, a steadfast symbol of tradition, swaying gently in the crisp autumn breeze. The forecourt hums with live tourists snapping photos, children clutching miniature flags, the air alive with the scent of roasted chestnuts and the faint rustle of fallen leaves. At the heart of this historic stage stands a royal guard, his scarlet tunic a vivid splash of color, his towering bearskin hat a testament to centuries of duty. But today, a single encounter will unfold, a clash between one woman's arrogance and a soldier's unbreakable resolve, a moment that will reveal the truest meaning of honor in the shadow of the palace gates. As the world watches, one question resonates. What does it take to stand firm when power demands submission? The crowd parts like a tide as Victoria Blackwood strides through the forecourt, her presence a commanding force that silences chatter. At Fintat, she is a millionaire tech CEO, the architect of a global empire that spans continents, her name etched in the annals of industry. Her gunmetal gray suit, tailored to perfection, hooks her frame, its sharp lines a mirror to the cold steel in her emerald eyes. Her dark hair is pulled into a flawless chignon, her heels striking the cobblestones with a rhythm that demands attention. Victoria is in London to finalize a monumental merger, her days filled with high-stakes negotiations and glittering galas. But she has paused to visit Buckingham Palace, drawn by its prestige and the chance to assert her dominance in yet another arena. A flashback transports us to a sleek Manhattan boardroom where Victoria's voice, sharp and unyielding, seals a billion-pound deal, her rivals cowed by her relentless will. To her, every space is a battlefield, every interaction an opportunity to prove her superiority, and she expects even the storied grounds of the palace to bow to her command. At the palace gates, Private Thomas Caldwell stands motionless, a living embodiment of the Queen's Guard. At the fjord, with a lean, battle-scarred frame, Caldwell is no mere ceremonial figure. His dark eyes, steady beneath the brim of his bearskin hat, hold a focus forged in the crucible of combat. 8 years with the elite parachute regiment have shaped him. His service in Afghanistan's Helmand province earning him a military cross for bravery. A faint flashback shows him in a dusty village, his uniform streaked with blood and dirt, carrying a wounded comrade 3 miles through enemy fire, his resolve unshaken as mortars explode around him. Now, as a royal guard, his goal is unwavering: uphold the crown's honor with absolute discipline, a duty that transcends wealth, status, or fame. His scarlet tunic is pristine, his rifle held at precisely the correct angle, his stillness a silent vow to the tradition he serves. The forecourt is a vibrant tapestry of faces tourists with cameras slung around their necks, a vendor hawking Union Jack postcards, an elderly couple strolling arm in arm, their faces lit with nostalgia. Among them, an elderly veteran in a tilted beret leans on his cane, his eyes sharp with the memory of his own service. A young mother holds her son's hand, pointing out the guard's bright uniform, while a group of students whisper excitedly, their guidebooks open. The crowd is unaware of the drama about to unfold, their voices a lively hum, their cameras capturing the palace's grandeur. Victoria, her assistant trailing nervously with a tablet in hand, locks her gaze on Caldwell, expecting the deference she believes her wealth and status command. She stops a few feet from him, her heels echoing like a drumbeat on the cobblestones, and speaks, her voice sharp and imperious. "Do you know who I am?" she demands, her words cutting through the crowd's chatter like a blade. Caldwell remains motionless, his gaze fixed on an unseen horizon, his silence a wall that Victoria cannot breach. The tourists turn, their murmurs fading, sensing the brewing tension. The elderly couple pauses, the woman's hand tightening on her husband's arm. The vendor, his cart momentarily forgotten, raises an eyebrow. Victoria's pride, a fire, that has fueled her rise, ignites at the guard's refusal to acknowledge her. She steps closer, her emerald eyes narrowing, her voice rising with indignation. "You're a relic, ignoring my status," she snaps, her words loud enough to draw gasps from the crowd. The young mother pulls her son closer, his eyes wide with curiosity. The veteran, his beret tilted, grips his cane tighter, his frown deepening as he senses trouble. Victoria's assistant shifts uncomfortably, but she presses on, her tone venomous. "I could ruin you with one call," she threatens, her hand diving into her designer handbag. The crowd holds its breath as she pulls out a small pepper spray canister, its sleek black form a jarring intrusion in this sacred space. "Acknowledge me," she hisses, "or I'll make you." The tension escalates as Victoria's entitlement blinds her to the propriety of the moment. She steps even closer, the pepper spray raised like a weapon, her face inches from Caldwell's. "I'll have your superiors dismiss you," she threatens, her voice a low growl, her confidence unshaken by the crowd's growing unease. The tourists whisper, their phones raised, capturing the unfolding drama. The elderly woman murmurs to her husband, "She can't do that. Can she?" The students, their guidebooks forgotten, watch wide-eyed, while the vendor shakes his head, muttering, "This won't end well." The veteran, his eyes narrowing, steps closer to the barrier, his voice low but firm. "She's crossed a line," he says to those nearby, his words heavy with experience. Caldwell's posture remains unbroken, his training a fortress against provocation. His eyes, though facing the threat of the spray, remain fixed, his body a pillar of resolve. In a moment of reckless arrogance, Victoria presses the canister's trigger, sending a burst of pepper spray toward Caldwell's face. The crowd gasps, a collective sound that echoes across the forecourt, expecting the guard to falter, to collapse, to break. The spray hits Caldwell's face, a stinging mist that reddens his eyes and sears his skin. A flicker of pain crosses his features, a brief tightening of his jaw. But he does not move, does not cry out, does not yield. His resilience is a silent rebuke, a testament to a strength forged in trials Victoria cannot comprehend. The crowd watches, awestruck, as the guard stands like a statue, his scarlet tunic vivid against the gray cobblestones, his bearskin hat unmoved by the breeze. Victoria falters, the canister trembling in her hand, her confidence cracking as she realizes her power has failed her. The elderly couple claps softly, their applause a spark that spreads through the crowd. The young mother, her son now peeking out, whispers, "He's so brave." The students, their faces lit with admiration, lower their phones, their respect palpable. The veteran, his beret tilted proudly, mutters, "He's seen worse." Caldwell, his vision blurred, but his training absolute, acts with the precision of a soldier who has faced far greater threats. In a single, fluid motion, he lifts his gloved hand and seizes Victoria's wrist, his grip gentle but unyielding. The canister falls, rolling across the cobblestones with a faint clatter, its threat extinguished. He holds her wrist, his eyes locking onto hers, a silent command to stand down. His voice, when it comes, is low and steady, cutting through the crowd's murmurs. "Ma'am, you will step back." The words are not angry, not vengeful, but resolute, a declaration of duty that silences the forecourt. Victoria's face pales, her emerald eyes wide with shock, her arrogance stripped bare. The crowd watches in reverence, their phones lowered, their respect for Caldwell deepening. The veteran steps forward, his cane tapping the ground, his voice rough but resonant, carrying the weight of experience. "That man fought in Kandahar," he says, pointing to Caldwell, his words slicing through the tension, "carried his squad through hell. You think a spray will break him." The revelation lands like a thunderbolt, stripping away Victoria's illusions. The crowd murmurs, heads turning, as they learn Caldwell's history. A decorated soldier of the parachute regiment, a man who has stared down death in Afghanistan's most brutal battlefields, whose courage was forged in the crucible of war. The tourists, their faces a mix of awe and shame, whisper among themselves, some clapping, others nodding in respect. The elderly couple, their hands clasped, smile warmly, the woman murmuring, "God bless him." The young mother lifts her son higher, pointing to Caldwell as a lesson in bravery. The students, their guidebooks clutched tightly, exchange looks of admiration, one whispering, "He's a hero." The vendor, now grinning, calls out, "Well done, lad." The veteran, his point made, steps back, his eyes never leaving Victoria, his beret a silent badge of his own service. Two police officers push through the crowd, their radios crackling, their movements calm but firm. They approach Victoria, who stands motionless, her wrist released, her designer suit now a hollow symbol of her power. The officers, their faces professional but stern, place handcuffs on her, the cold metal a stark contrast to her polished exterior. Victoria's face, once a mask of arrogance, is now ashen, her eyes downcast, the weight of her actions settling like a stone. The crowd watches, not with malice, but with a quiet acknowledgement of justice. The officers lead her away, her heels no longer clicking with authority, her presence diminished in the face of something greater. Caldwell resumes his post, his rifle steady, his bearskin hat adjusted, as if the encounter was but a fleeting ripple in his day. The palace forecourt returns to its rhythm, the tourists resuming their photos, the vendor calling out prices, but the moment has left its mark, a story already weaving itself into legend. In the days that follow, the incident reverberates far beyond the palace gates. A tourist's video, capturing Victoria's spray and Caldwell's resolve, goes viral, shared across social media, with captions of admiration and disbelief. News outlets pick up the story, framing it as a lesson in humility, a clash between wealth and honor that ended with the soldier's triumph. Commentators debate the nuances. Victoria's entitlement, Caldwell's restraint, the veteran's pivotal role. But the consensus is clear. In the shadow of Buckingham Palace, a guard's quiet strength prevailed. Victoria, facing charges of assault and public disturbance, retreats from the public eye, her merger talks faltering, her reputation in tatters. She spends sleepless nights in her London penthouse, the veteran's words echoing in her mind, Caldwell's unflinching gaze a mirror to her own flaws. She begins to question her empire, her values, her legacy, the lesson of that day, a wound that forces growth, however painful. Caldwell, meanwhile, returns to his duties, his life unchanged by the spotlight. His comrades in the barracks offer quiet nods, their respect unspoken but profound. His commanding officer, Captain Daniel Edwards, summons him for a brief meeting, his tone gruff but approving. "You handled it with honor, Caldwell," he says, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "The crown's proud of you." Caldwell nods, his face impassive, but inside he feels a warmth, a confirmation that his choice was right. He thinks of his time in Afghanistan, of the men he saved, the promises he made to live with purpose. The encounter with Victoria is but a moment, a test he passed without fanfare, a reminder that his strength lies not in what he says, but in what he does. He stands guard the next day, the sunrise casting a golden glow over the palace, his silhouette a symbol of enduring duty. The veteran, whose voice turned the tide, returns to his modest flat in East London, his military cross displayed on a simple shelf. He tells the story to his granddaughter, his voice steady, his pride in Caldwell a reflection of his own service. The girl listens, her eyes wide, vowing to remember the guard, the woman, the lesson. The elderly couple, back in their village, recount the incident to their neighbors, their voices filled with admiration for the young soldier. The young mother and her son visit the palace again, the boy clutching a toy soldier, pointing to the guards with newfound respect. The vendor, his cart now adorned with a small Union Jack, shares the tale with every customer, embellishing it with each telling. But the core remains, a woman of power, humbled by a soldier's resolve. The palace, with its golden gates and ancient stones, stands as it always has, a witness to countless dramas, its honor upheld by those who serve it. The story of Victoria and Caldwell becomes a modern parable, a tale of hubris and humility, of flash versus fortitude, of the power of a single moment to reveal the truth. It reminds us that honor is not a commodity to be bought, not a price to be demanded, but a virtue forged in sacrifice and proven in silence. Victoria Blackwood, in her defeat, learned what many spend lifetimes discovering, that the truest power lies in resilience, in the ability to stand firm against the storm, to embody the values that time cannot erode. Private Caldwell, with his silent strength, became her teacher, and in doing so, a beacon for us all. In the deepest hour of the Vatican night, the Apostolic Palace stands cloaked in silence, its marble corridors a labyrinth of shadows, where ancient frescoes fade into darkness. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of aged stone, beeswax, and the faintest trace of incense lingering from evening prayers. A single amber lamp flickers, its golden glow casting soft pools of light on a modest wooden door, unremarkable yet sacred, the threshold to a dying pope's final moments. Outside, the eternal city sleeps, its hum muted, the stars hidden behind a veil of clouds. In this quietest hour, a summons echoes not for protection, but for a promise, a sacred charge that will bind a guard to his pope beyond the veil of life. Tonight, in the hallowed solitude of the Vatican, a moment will unfold that speaks to the heart of devotion, where love, duty, and remembrance converge in the silence of a farewell. As the world rests, one question lingers. What promise would you carry for a soul on the edge of eternity? The door creaks open, and Lance Corporal Elias Kernig steps into the dim corridor, his vibrant Swiss Guard tunic of blue, red, and yellow, a striking contrast to the muted stone. At Trinity, Elias is a man of quiet resolve, his face etched with the lines of a soldier who has known both sacrifice and grace. His hazel eyes, shadowed with unspoken grief, reflect a soul wounded by loss, yet anchored by an unshakable sense of duty. In the barracks, moments before, he stood before a small mirror, his hands steady as he buttoned his tunic, each motion deliberate, a ritual to prepare for the weight of this summons. His fingers brushed the wooden rosary in his pocket, its beads worn smooth by years of prayer, a gift from the man he now goes to meet. Elias's goal is unwavering, to honor his duty to Pope Francis, a pontiff who saw beyond his uniform to the broken heart within, by answering a final call that will test the depths of his devotion, his courage, and his faith. A flashback carries us to a small Vatican chapel, 3 years prior, where a younger Elias kneels alone in the flickering glow of votive candles. His face is hollow, his eyes red from silent tears, the weight of his brother's death. A climbing accident in the Alps, still raw, a wound that threatens to unravel him. Pope Francis, his white cassock glowing softly in the dim light, enters unannounced, his steps slow but purposeful. He kneels beside Elias, his presence a quiet comfort, and offers a simple wooden rosary, its beads unadorned but warm from his hand. God sees your heart, Elias, he says, his voice gentle, his eyes warm with compassion. Carry this, and you carry him. The moment forges a bond, unspoken but profound, a connection that has sustained Elias through countless nights of guard duty, through moments of doubt, through the quiet battles of the soul. Now, as he approaches the Pope's chamber, the Rosary is his anchor, a tangible link to the man whose light is fading, whose trust he must not betray. Inside the Pope's private chambers, Pope Francis lies frail and nearing the end, his white cassock loose on a frame diminished by illness. At Inicis, his face is a tapestry of wisdom and weariness, his skin pale as parchment, his eyes still bright with the compassion that defined his papacy. The amber lamp casts soft shadows across his features, highlighting the faint smile that lingers despite his pain. A wooden cross hangs on the wall, its simplicity a reflection of the man who lies beneath it. A single chair sits beside the bed, a small table holding a glass of water and a worn Bible, its pages marked with notes in Francis's careful script. The air is thick with the scent of lavender, a faint attempt to ease the Pope's discomfort, and the soft rustle of linen as he shifts slightly. Outside, a small window reveals the Vatican silhouette against a starless sky. The dome of St. Peter's a silent witness to this sacred moment. Francis's goal is singular: to entrust his last words to Elias, to ensure his legacy of silent, selfless love endures beyond his final breath. Carried by a guard whose heart he knows as well as his own, Elias enters, his boots whispering on the marble floor, and kneels beside the bed, his posture reverent, his lips pressed in determination. The amber light softens the lines of his face, revealing the quiet strength beneath his grief. Francis's eyes brighten with recognition, a faint smile touching his lips as he whispers, "You came." The words, fragile but warm, pierce Elias's heart, and he replies, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. Always, the Pope's face, a blend of peace and exhaustion, softens as he murmurs, "You were my witness, Elias." The words carry a weight that settles deep in Elias's soul, a recognition of the moments they shared, quiet walks in the Vatican gardens, where Francis spoke of mercy over tea, late-night talks in this very chamber, where Elias confessed his fears of failing his duty. The rosary that became a bridge between a pope and his guard. Elias's eyes sting with tears, his jaw tight, torn between the disciplined silence of his training and the overwhelming intimacy of this farewell. He senses the responsibility Francis is about to bestow, a sacred charge that feels both an honor and a burden. Yet his heart vows to bear it, no matter the cost. The tension escalates as Francis's voice grows fainter, each word a struggle, his face strained with effort, but his eyes clear with purpose. "I failed in my later years, grew afraid," he whispers, his voice barely audible, his admission raw and human, a confession that strips away the mantle of infallibility. Elias shakes his head, his expression anguished, his eyes glistening as he leans closer, his voice breaking. "You did not fail, Holy Father," he says, a plea to ease the Pope's burden, to honor the man who brought hope to millions. Francis's hand, trembling and cold, grasps Elias's wrist, his fingers surprisingly strong despite their frailty. His face softens with a ghost of humor, a spark of the man who once laughed with children in St. Peter's Square. "Even saints fail. My son," he says, his voice a fragile thread, his eyes twinkling briefly with the warmth that endeared him to the world. He pauses, his breathing rattling, a sound that fills the room with the weight of mortality, then continues, his words deliberate, each one a stone in the foundation of his legacy. "When no one else remembers, you must." Elias's face tightens with the weight of the command, his eyes closing briefly, tears slipping down his cheeks as he commits the words to memory. The rosary in his hand trembles slightly, its wooden beads a lifeline, a tangible link to the man whose voice is fading. The room feels smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves are listening, bearing witness to this sacred exchange. Francis's words are not just a request, but a mantle, a charge to carry his heart into the future, to keep alive the quiet love that defined his papacy. Elias's mind races. Memories flooding back of Francis washing the feet of prisoners, embracing refugees, standing in the rain to pray with the poor. He sees the Pope's courage, his humility, his refusal to let fear silence his compassion. And he knows he cannot let those truths fade. The ember lamp flickers, casting shadows that dance like memories across the room. And Elias's heart pounds, his resolve hardening even as his grief threatens to overwhelm him. The moment builds to a sacred crescendo, the air thick with the sanctity of what is being shared. Francis's voice drops to a fragile rasp, his face now serene, his eyes half closed, a faint smile of peace settling over him like a mantle. Remember, he whispers, each word a labor of love, a final gift to the world he served. Love without noise is still love. Service without audience is still service. The words hang in the air, simple yet profound, a distillation of a life lived for others, a call to carry on in the quiet moments when no one watches. His hand slips from Elias's wrist, resting gently on the sheet, his fingers curling slightly as if reaching for eternity. His eyes close for the last time, his breathing slowing, then ceasing, a quiet passage marked only by the soft flicker of the lamp. Elias bows his head, his face a portrait of silent grief and resolve, tears falling quietly onto the marble floor. His shoulders remain steady, his posture disciplined even in sorrow, a soldier honoring his commander in the most sacred way he knows. A distant bell tolls once, its mournful note echoing through the Vatican, marking the end of an era in sacred silence. Elias rises, his face now calm, his eyes red but resolute, the rosary clutched tightly in his hand. He salutes Francis one last time, a slow, reverent gesture, his arms steady despite the weight of his grief. The room feels emptier, the air cooler, but Elias's heart is full. The Pope's words, a flame that will guide him forward. He lingers for a moment, his eyes tracing the contours of Francis's face, memorizing the peace that now rests there. The wooden cross on the wall seems to glow faintly, a silent affirmation of the promise made. Elias steps back, his boots soft on the marble, and leaves the chamber, the wooden door closing with a gentle thud that echoes in the silent corridor. The Vatican sleeps, unaware of the promise forged in its heart. But Elias carries it like a sacred relic, its weight both burden and blessing, a vow that will shape every step he takes. Days later, the Vatican mourns, its sacred spaces filled with the weight of loss. St. Peter's Square at dawn is a sea of pilgrims, their candles flickering against the rosy light, their prayers a chorus of grief and hope. Bells toll softly, their notes weaving through the crowd, as cardinals in scarlet robes move through the basilica, their faces heavy with the task of choosing a successor. The Swiss guard, Elias among them, stands watch, their halberds a forest of steel, their discipline a silent tribute to the man they served. Elias, stationed in a quiet chapel of the Sistine, wears his vibrant tunic with a serenity that belies his grief. In his pocket, a small notebook holds a single entry, written in careful script. Remembrance begins in silence. The words are his vow, a commitment to live Francis's legacy in every act, every breath, every moment of service, a promise to keep the Pope's heart alive in the quiet corners of the world. The world beyond the Vatican mourns Pope Francis, his simple life a beacon for billions, his death a moment of global reflection. News outlets recount his papacy, his visits to war-torn nations, his embrace of the marginalized, his call for a church that serves without judgment. Pilgrims flock to Rome, leaving flowers at the basilica's steps, their tears a testament to a man who touched their lives. Yet none know of the midnight promise, the guard who became his final witness, the words that live only in Elias's heart. In the barracks, his comrades sense a change, a quiet strength that radiates from him. They do not ask about the night, respecting his silence, but they see it in his eyes, a peace that comes from carrying something sacred. Corporal Matteo Rossi, a fellow guard and Elias's closest friend, claps him on the shoulder one evening, his voice low. You're different. Kernig, whatever he gave you, it's big. Elias smiles faintly, the rosary in his pocket. A silent reply. Its beads a constant reminder of his charge. Commandant Johann Schmidt, a stern but fair leader, calls Elias to his office, the room lined with portraits of past commandants, their eyes seeming to watch. Schmidt's face is gruff, his hands clasped behind his back, but his voice softens as he speaks. You served him well, Kernig, he says, his eyes meeting Elias's. Whatever he asked, you carry it now. Do it with honor. Elias nods, his throat tight, the rosary in his pocket. A silent affirmation. He spends evenings in the chapel, where Francis gave him the rosary, the same one where he once wept for his brother. The candles flicker, their light dancing on the stone, and Elias prays not for answers, but for the strength to remember, to live the Pope's words in a world that often forgets the quiet acts of love. The wooden beads, worn smooth by his touch, are a talisman, a link to the man who saw his pain and offered hope, who entrusted him with a legacy that needs no audience to shine. The Vatican moves forward, its rituals unbroken, its heart steady. A new pope will be chosen, new challenges will arise. But Francis's legacy lingers in the small acts of those he touched. Elias, now a keeper of his words, finds purpose in the quiet moments, helping a lost pilgrim find their way insane. Peter's Square, sharing a kind word with a young recruit struggling with doubt, writing in his notebook, when the world is still. One afternoon, he encounters a young girl in the Vatican gardens, her face streaked with tears, her mother explaining that she mourns the Pope who blessed her at a papal audience. Elias kneels, his tunic bright against the green, and offers her a gentle smile, echoing Francis's warmth. He's still with you, he says, his voice soft. In the love you carry. The girl clutches her rosary, her eyes brightening, and Elias feels Francis's presence, a quiet affirmation that his promise is alive. The notebook in Elias's pocket grows, its pages filling with reflections, moment, and memories inspired by Francis's words. He writes of the pilgrims he meets, their stories of faith and struggle, of the recruits he trains, their eagerness tempered by his lessons in humility, of the Vatican's quiet corners, where he feels the Pope's spirit most strongly. Each entry is a step in his vow, a way to keep the legacy alive, to ensure that love without noise and service without audience remain truths the world can hold. The rosary, always with him, is a constant companion. Its beads, a rhythm for his prayers, a reminder of the man whose heart he carries. Elias's life, once defined by loss, is now defined by purpose, his grief transformed into a quiet strength that radiates in every act, every choice, every moment he chooses to remember. The crowds in St. Peter's Square, their candles flickering against the dawn, carry their own memories of Francis, their prayers a tapestry of love and loss. But Elias carries something deeper, a promise made in the silence of a dying man's room, a charge to be the witness when others forget. The Vatican, with its timeless rituals and sacred spaces, continuous, its heartbeat steady, its story enriched by a God who answered a midnight summons. The world beyond, with its noise and haste, may move on, but Elias remains, a quiet sentinel of a legacy that shines in the stillness. His tunic, vibrant against the stone, is a symbol of his duty, but his heart, heavy with the Pope's words, is the true vessel of his promise. The story of Elias and Francis is a testament to the power of silent promises, a reminder that the greatest acts of love and service often go unseen, their impact felt in the quiet corners of the soul. It is a story of a guard who, in the Vatican's quietest hour, became a witness to a pope's heart, who carried a dying wish not with fanfare, but with the steady courage of remembrance. It challenges us to consider the promises we keep, the legacies we honor, the moments when we choose to listen to a higher call. Even when the world is silent, Elias Kernik, with his disciplined reverence, reminds us that love without noise is still love, that service without audience is still service, that the truest duties are those we carry in our hearts, even when no one else sees. What would you carry for a dying wish? Have you ever been entrusted with a promise that changed you? A moment that asked you to remember when others forget? Share your story in the comments below. Tell us about the commitments that shaped your heart, the silent acts that defined your duty, the lessons that linger in your soul. If you're moved by stories like Elias's stories of love, remembrance, and the quiet courage that carries us through, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Join us for more tales that inspire, that challenge, that remind us of the strength within us all. Every single day, beauty